What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for listening to Your Ex Drinking Buddy. My name is Brennan Tassif. I'll be your host. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Check out the merch store at brennantcomedy.com/merch-store. And make sure you subscribe on YouTube as well. We'll put the shorts up there, the full video, the whole thing. Thank you so much for listening. I love it. I hope you love it. Subscribe on Patreon, too. We do bonus episodes. I do Tales from the Restaurant, where I talk about celebrities I've waited on and whether they're assholes or not, which is super fun. Also, we do a pre-show banter for my other show, Cheers from the Press Box with Joe Dorville. A lot of behind-the-scenes stuff going on over there, too. Make sure you just subscribe everywhere, just all over the place. I greatly appreciate it. And if you're not leaving the mean comments, thank you for that. Maybe leave a couple nice ones.
Grab me a beer and grab him a coke. We bout to sit for an hour, bullshit and tell jokes. And please don't mix it up, cause he done sobered up. Brennan T Comedy on your social media feeds. And Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another edition of Brennan Tassif is your ex drinking buddy. I am your host, Brennan Tassif. If you're new to the program, quick rundown of the show. I used to be everyone's favorite drinking buddy. It was my favorite thing to do, hang out with friends, get drunk, do drugs, get in all sorts of trouble, and then reminisce about those crazy stories. I am sober now, but it's still one of my favorite things to do, hang out with somebody and reminisce about the crazy old days. Most weeks I'll be joined by a guest. This week is no exception. All the way from New York City, Vanessa Jackson.
Yay!
What's up?
We're here. Wait, I have a question already off the bat. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Wait, you were everybody's favorite drinking buddy? That's validated?
I was everybody's drinking the guy who drank a lot.
Okay, I was going to say.
I have been doing this show for 4 years, over 200 episodes. Nobody's ever
really?
brought that up.
That's so
No one's ever
funny.
been like, I don't think you were everyone's favorite.
Yeah. Well, I just...
Sorry, the apartment is alive.
No, I love it. Just putting the pieces together.
Foliage.
You are sober now, so I'm like,
Yes.
There's somebody who has a story where you're like, good thing Brennan got sober because
Yes.
he was not the most fun drinking buddy.
Yeah, I'm sure my ex-fiance would probably be one of those people.
Yeah.
My parents are definitely those people.
Okay,
The original
cool.
drinking buddy, Daniel Barricat, is one of
Yeah.
those people.
Nice.
I got a long list.
Yeah.
The Florida corrections system is probably one of those people.
Fair. Okay.
Yeah, it was, I guess not favorite. I was the kind of person where if you were like, man, I had a really hard day.
Yeah.
I need a drink, and it's like Tuesday at 2 p.m., you'd be like, Brennan will be down.
Yeah, you'd be the go-to.
Yeah.
Okay, I
So,
respect that.
That's more.
No, you can say favorite. I didn't mean to call your whole entire existence into question. This is who I am. 2 seconds into the podcast, I'm like, let's reevaluate
I
this.
have been doing that intro for 4 years, so we might need to change it. I might need
No.
to say everyone's drinking person, not even buddy.
Not even
Just
buddy.
Take buddy out of it. Change the cover art. Redo the whole thing.
You're like, I drank with a lot of people.
I did do that.
yeah.
I was the kind of person where if someone had like a final, I'd be like, yeah, but it's your major. You know the
Yeah.
material. Let's go drink.
I love that. Yeah. And that is a fun one. You
Yeah.
need that person every now and again.
Every now and again.
You're like, you
Absolutely.
did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go hang.
Well, let's talk about you.
Yes.
Plug everything up front. I always do it up front and then at the end. So let everyone know where they can find you. Social media. This will come out in 2 weeks. So any shows you have coming up in November.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
perfect. You can find me on all platforms except for Twitter, except for maybe. I got kicked off of Twitter a couple months ago.
I just stopped.
Oh,
using it.
really?
Yeah.
How come?
Because it was a lot at first when I was posting a lot of clips to like do the extra thing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting any validation or traction from Twitter. So I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I guess I'm just not going to post here anymore.
Yeah.
And everything I want to, it's kind of a cesspool
Yes.
of negativity.
It's become that for sure.
Where it's like, they'll be like, maybe you'll like this fight video. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, oh, I'm interested. A bully getting beat up.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, hey, the cartel murdered 6 people. Maybe you'll like this. And I'm like, this is too far.
Yeah, I've heard you can quickly go down the wrong rabbit hole.
And even if you stop on a video, you don't even have to click it. If you stop on a video, it'll just infest your feed.
Oh, it's like, you love this.
Yeah.
You love murder.
We saw you stop for 3 seconds.
Yeah, this is your content.
Yeah, so
That's
I just
crazy.
am completely off of it.
Yeah,
you got
good for
kicked
you.
off.
I got kicked off not for even, well, I don't think it was for doing anything. Wouldn't that be crazy? I'm like, I just said Donald Trump is like, no. I got kicked off.
You know,
Yeah.
get that Vanessa out of here.
Like,
I
he's
don't like
perfect. No notes. No, just one day they were like, oh, Vanessa is no longer on Twitter. I think it's either somebody, because I tried to get my account back and they were like, no, girl. There was an account that had a name similar to mine, because mine is Very Vanessa but with 2 N's, because my name has 2 N's. And there's one that's like Very Vanessa with 1 N that's like kind of a creepy page. So I'm like, maybe they got those confused. But then also somebody told me that when Elon bought it, it was like, oh, if you don't post a lot, we just assume you're inactive and we shut your account down.
That's a thing that I've heard as well.
Yeah.
Where I have a couple friends in LA that were making a movie.
Oh, really?
And so they went out and got all the social media handles.
Yeah.
This is like in the infancy of,
Uh-huh.
and then immediately, like their Twitter account was just canceled.
Yeah.
Because they got the account, but then
Yeah.
didn't post after like 36 hours, and it was just
Yeah.
suspended or shut down.
That's
or,
also the thing about Twitter, which Twitter secretly, they really want, like, you have to be on it constantly, even to like gain any sort of traction. It was like, you have to have like 15 tweets a day. You have to be engaging with people. It's like,
which is insane to
it's
me.
an insane level. And anybody who's like really was big on Twitter, I was like, oh yeah, you're like deep in the internet.
Yeah.
Like you are deep in the pocket. And also they did that thing so that it would keep you addicted, which
Yeah.
is the like gambling thing that all the things do. TikTok too. And I do have a TikTok addiction.
What
But
is your TikTok account?
what is it? Very Vanessa.
It's all
Sorry,
Very Vanessa.
all Very Vanessa. 2 N's in
what I did
Vanessa. Yeah, there we go. And then promo. I'm actually doing a show in New York, an hour for New York Comedy Festival.
Holy shit! Congratulations!
Yeah,
That's
thanks.
awesome.
I'm really excited about it.
You're running a full hour.
I'm running a
Here
full
we
hour.
go.
It will be very fun.
This is why we play the
yes,
game.
Yes, there we go. It is 100%. So I'm super excited about it. It'll be really great at the Tiny Cupboard.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I'll link it. When is it? It's in November, right?
14th. at
Okay, I'll
8:30.
link everything in the show notes. If you're in New York, go out and see Vanessa. She's very, very hilarious.
Perfect.
We did a show together at Rodney's. Not very many people in the audience. I brought my
Yeah.
girlfriend and her brother, and
Oh, were they there?
yeah, we just came from Rosh Hashanah, and
no. How'd
so-
your set go on that show?
actually, it's funny. I am very nihilistic and pessimistic.
Uh-huh.
If I don't crush, I'm like I bombed.
Yeah.
But I crushed.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
There we go.
It was to the point where when I got off stage, Tracy, my girlfriend, came up to me and she goes, "Hey, was the booker here tonight?" And I go, No, he wasn't here tonight. He just asked me to jump on like kind of last minute."
Uh-huh.
She goes, "Is someone gonna tell him?" Because she's been to a lot of shows,
Oh, yeah,
and she
yeah.
has seen me just been like mediocre or bomb completely.
Yeah.
But she was like, "Is someone gonna tell him
Yeah.
how well so
Yeah,
you
you
can get more
destroyed.
spots?" And I was like, "I don't know." But you were by far one of their favorites. You and
Oh.
Matthew Broussard, which obviously
yay.
that's kind of a
Yeah.
murderer's row. It's like.
Bless your soul. I'll take that. To
But
put
it
my
was
name in the
very-
same breath? Sure.
You guys, she said it very succinctly. She goes, "We come to a lot of your shows, and normally it's showcases here in New York." And she goes, "We see a lot of bad comedians."
Yeah.
She goes, "Every single person on that lineup was so good."
Oh, that's
And I was
great.
like, "Oh, that's awesome."
That's awesome. That is the funny part about it, because also I think that's so comedy. Anytime you have like the best set of your life, nobody was there to witness it.
Yeah.
Anytime you are like bombing, you'll walk off stage and be like, "Oh, cool, Louis C.K. was here. Awesome." And no, I love that. And I love that Chris Rock was walking in the back. That's
That
awesome.
has happened to me a few times at the stand,
Oh,
where I've been in
yes.
the upstairs room,
Uh-huh.
and like a couple of friends. I have different friends that run shows there,
Yeah.
and sometimes I go just to support, and they'll be like,
Yeah.
"Hey, you want to jump up?" And I'll be like, "Hell yeah!"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "I'm gonna crush so hard, Joe, the manager, is gonna come running in to
Yes.
be like, what is
Where?
happening?"
Yes, uh-huh.
And then it's like a mediocre set. I remember one time I had a really good set, but I had just thought of this new joke, and I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh, this is gonna change
Yeah.
comedy." So
Yeah,
I was
of
like,
course.
obviously, I'm gonna close with it,
Obviously.
and it fell flat. And Joe had walked in like 2/3 of the way through my set.
Yeah.
So I did one joke that went really well, and then went into the closer that bombed, and he was just like, "Did
Yeah.
you have
that's-
fun?" And I was like,
No. The worst is when they say something that just clocks it.
"Did you have fun?"
Did you have fun?
No, actually, I'm miserable now.
Oh my gosh, that's always the worst thing. I can't talk to people sometimes after a set, especially a bad set. People will say things that you're just like, don't do. It was one of the worst things somebody ever said. I think he was like slightly joking, but he was like, "You know what? You were supposed to do jokes, and that's what you did." Touche.
I did write out jokes.
I literally did the exact thing and no more.
It is an interesting thing because I've been on shows, and I'm sure this happens. I think this happens to all of us, but where like if you have a bad set, you'll go back and look through your material, and for me, I'll be like, oh, none of this is funny, or like this is all. Even if it's not, I'll be like, this is all just premises, and it's not. Like I have tags, but I'm like, this is. I don't see why anyone would find anything I've ever said funny.
Yes, 100%.
There is no comedy.
Yeah, those are the worst. That where you're like, has there ever been a joke that I've written? Hold on.
I know there's
Wait.
something.
Yeah.
I had a set one time at Broadway upstairs in the Red Room.
Oh yeah.
And I normally start with the material about like being from Florida and being arrested and like, ooh, bad boy, but now I'm reformed and I'm sober. But a couple people I talked to, especially a very close friend of mine, friend of the show, Jared Waters, was like, hey, man, you should start with the silly stuff. Like, get people on your side, which is great advice.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, I'll do that. So I had started doing that within the last, like, 2 years, and it's been working.
Yeah.
I went up at Broadway and tried it, and it was just silence. And I was like, wait, this is, like, out of my silly stuff, this is the best stuff I have. And it was just deaf ears.
Yeah.
And then I went into the more like the stuff I would normally start with.
Yeah.
And then and I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
I can't connect with anything.
Yeah, I have had some of the worst sets of my life, specifically there only because it's like they will pack it out, but sometimes it's like heavy on the tourists and heavy on the foreign tourists.
Yes.
Where like, I've had full
innuendo,
sets.
sarcasm, all that kind of stuff.
I've had sets where I have fully zeroed, where you're like, okay, this has gotten laughs before.
But the New York Comedy Festival,
right? Yeah. There have been nights, especially there, where you're just like, how is nothing I'm saying reading at all?
I have this whole thing about movie lines because I was like raised, I love movies. I was raised on movies. So I like really shitty movies because I can steal the intellectual property and pass it off as my own. That's the premise of the bit. And I did it, and I have one where I quote Mighty Ducks 3, and always huge laugh.
Yeah.
And I even do like the flying V, and like boom. I did it there, silence. And then I doubled down and went, flying V, silence.
No.
And it was a lot of tourists, so I go, and I, obviously comics before me were crowd working and stuff, so I go, what, they don't have the Mighty Ducks in Scandinavia? Because that's where they were from. And they go, no, they do.
Oh, no. They're like, no, we got the reference. That's the worst. The worst is when you bomb and you like try to tell yourself it was tourist, and they're like, nah, we got it.
We understood fully.
We were understanding it. That wasn't the issue. Issue was we do not like you. Sorry, we didn't make that clear.
Well, that's cool. Because that's where we met was at Rodney's, and we have a lot of obviously mutual friends and stuff like that.
Yes.
So I was like, and your set was hilarious. I made sure to come in and watch your set, and it was so funny. And I was like, we got to get her on the pod, man.
Thank you.
So here we are. I want to talk to you about how it all started.
Ooh.
So where are you from originally?
Ooh, how it all started? Rancho Cucamonga, California.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which you said something very funny to me when I asked you that when we first met. You go, I can tell people's age.
Yes, the age demographic.
Yeah, based on the pop culture reference.
Yes, because there's 3 very specific ones, which is like it's either Friday,
which was mine.
Yes, which either means you are like older or you grew up around a lot of black people or like we're just aware of the culture. Or there's
both.
Yes, workaholics, which is the complete opposite demographic. It's usually young, white, bro-y guys. Or there's Bring It On, which is usually just women.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when you saw me, you went workaholics, and then I said,
yes,
next Friday.
And you threw me. You did. You threw me for a loop. I said, okay, we're dealing with a different world.
Yeah. So I say this to all my guests, especially because I have mainly comedians, actors sometimes and musicians, but mainly comedians. Comedy is such a niche thing.
Yeah.
How did you even find stand-up? Not like how you, like we'll get into how you got into it and stuff like that, but how did you even find it as a kid?
Oh, you know what's interesting? I didn't find it as a kid. This is the thing I always say about myself, which is I don't have the typical comedian story of like coming out of the womb being like, I'm going to be the next Richard Pryor, which I feel like that's where a lot of people's like big comedy things come from. I
was
found,
12.
Yes, yeah. What were you listening to?
My cousin introduced me to Comedy Central Presents, and I would record them on VHS and watch them over and over
Oh,
and over.
wow. Yeah. See, like that. That's cool. That was not my story.
What happened?
Yeah, I had a job after college where I was commuting really long distances, actually from Rancho Cucamonga to Orange County.
Oh, wow.
Which was like a 2-hour commute there and back. And so I was listening to like a lot of music on Spotify and stuff. And then I think I discovered like John Mulaney's album was the first one. I listened to a lot of John Mulaney in the early days, a lot of Aziz Ansari. Yeah, and I just started listening to like hodgepodges of stand-up.
I know that
and
Aziz Ansari one you're talking about.
yeah. The
Who watches
sensual.
Burn nowadays?
Yes, 100%. That was one of my favorite albums, and yeah, just started listening to a ton of different albums and a ton of different like
So
comedy.
you
stuff.
found it after college.
Yeah.
Because like to your point when you said it's not the typical route, I have so many people who are like, oh, well, I liked, I watched it as a kid with my parents. Or I
Yeah.
watched SNL. And then when I was in high school, I did a talent show where I did comedy.
Yes, yeah.
But you were
No.
post-college. You were like,
Yeah,
I guess.
and I didn't even start it then. It's really weird. Comedy is one of those things that found me. Not to sound very like crazy.
No, I understand.
but
The
I feel-
lightsaber finds the Jedi.
Yes,
I get it.
yes,
Yeah.
that whole thing. No, I feel like I had to be beaten over the head with like, oh, this is something you should do before it clicked with me, and I was like, oh.
So you started listening to different stuff. Did you ever become like, oh, this is like awesome, I'm obsessed with this art form, or you just kind of like, oh, I enjoy this is fun too?
It was just I enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just enjoyed listening to it. I was always laughing. It genuinely did not occur to me as something to pursue.
And then what happened? What changed?
What happened was I have always been interested in writing. So I was doing a lot of like entertainment writing.
Okay.
And then I was like, you know what? I kind of want to be in front of the camera doing like red carpet reporting. And so I took this class. It was a very scammy LA class because I Googled how to become a host. Literally Googled how to become a host. And there was literally this person who ran these classes called Become a Host.
Okay, boom.
Yeah, she really
They
had
knew
the
the
SEO.
SEO.
Yeah, she had it
Yes.
covered, literally. So I started taking classes there to learn how to be like an entertainment host. And one day, one of the girls in the class was like, "Oh, you're not very charming, but you're really funny." She meant it as like a compliment.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." She was like, "Yeah, you should look into comedy." And I was like, "No, thank you. I'm gonna be the next Ryan Seacrest. Thank you very much."
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. And then I took one of the teachers in that class because they weren't really like teachers. He was basically, it was very clear that he had nothing planned at all for the class. And so there was like 25 students in this class, a lot of people. Yeah.
I know because like there's comedy classes and stuff. They're charging.
Oh
it's
yeah,
not
it was
cheap.
like $500
Yeah.
a month. Like they were
Gosh.
making bank.
Hand over fist.
Yes, 100%. And he had
Just all these aspiring
yes,
young kids.
just,
like,
yeah, 100%. And now I know that's not at all how you do that, but they were making money. So he clearly had nothing planned. So he was like, "What I do is I'm a live entertainment host, and like I've hosted live entertainments for like the Super Bowl or things like this." So he was like, "Whenever you're a live entertainment host, you have to learn how to like entertain on the fly." So he was like, "What we're gonna do is every student's gonna come up here, and for 5 minutes, you're gonna keep us entertained." And we were like, "What?" And he was like, yeah, you can pretend you're at some sort of event, to pretend that you're at a live event, whatever you want. Everybody can just make up
Little
whatever
improv.
event.
Here we go.
Yes, literally for 5 minutes, which
That's
is
a long
insane.
time.
A long time. Even just like having prepared material, 5 minutes is a long time. Yeah.
Especially in those tourist rooms.
Yes, 100%. So
First show bombs and you go, oh, this is gonna be an eternity.
Yes, it feels like when things are not going well, 20 minutes can turn into like, I think I just ran out of material. I had an hour, but this is crazy.
And it's funny too, the opposite, when you're like crushing and you're like,
Yes.
no, I have like 10 more jokes I want to get
Yes,
to.
exactly. You're like, oh my gosh, you guys loved me. So he had us all
5 whole minutes.
5 whole minutes, and I went like third to last, like was petrified because I was just like trying to think of things in my head.
Had you been on stage or like in front of people speaking at all at this point?
No, not in
Okay.
like that way. And so I was like, okay, so let me get up here. I did my like 5, and then the whole thing was he would give people notes at the end and like
Love
whatever.
that.
Yeah,
It's my
and-
favorite thing in the world.
Right? Isn't it great? For a thing that none of us prepared and had no idea we were doing, give us notes. And so then he was like, oh, well, it doesn't count. You're a stand-up. And I was like, I don't what are you talking about?
Oh, so he said that.
Yeah, like he was like annoyed, and he was like, "Well, yeah, you're a stand-up."
You just
though.
ran your tight five. And
Yeah,
you were
like I
"What-
was
what?"
like, I was literally like, I don't know what you're talking about, and he goes, "You do stand-up," and I go, "I've never done stand-up in my life." And
wow.
yeah, and
so
he
you
was,
really were just like.
yeah. Well, I will say though, by the time I went, it was a 3-hour class. And by the time that I went up, I had started to think of like jokes and
Yeah.
stuff, so I was like more prepared than like whoever went up first. So I was prepared in that way.
Aren't we always though?
Yes,
Even
yeah.
years into this game, we're still always more prepared going up in the middle or last than we are
Yes.
to first.
Oh, 100%. Nobody wants to go up first.
Bullet is the worst spot.
Oh yeah, it can be painful too, especially depending on it, who the host is or whatever, how they set up the energy.
I've done shows with some, well, we won't say bad, but just
Oh yeah.
out there kind of hosts, and you're
Yeah.
like, "What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you
Yes.
doing?"
Oh, 100%. You're
Like
just
throwing
like,
out f bombs and
Yeah.
r words to people in the audience. Like, "What are you, an effing r?" And you're
Yeah.
like, "No, no, 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 no."
yes, you're just like you're gonna.
You are
that's
not
the-
Andrew Dice Clay. This is
Yes.
not 1987. Stop
yes.
that immediately.
That is the worst thing when people, aren't like prepared or whatever for hosting, and then you're just like, you just absolutely destroyed the energy in this room. What is happening? And now everybody's gonna. Now I spend my whole set trying to build people up.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Just destroyed the entire room.
Yes,
Because
yeah.
they didn't laugh at your first bit, so you
Yes.
called everyone gay.
100%. And now they're just like, what is this show?
Yeah.
What's happening? Oh, that's
I
painful.
oh my god. Anyway, I got off track. I'm sorry. So
No, you're
was it a male or a female teacher?
Man, yeah.
So the guy was like, "Oh, it doesn't count. You're a
years.
stand-up."
And I was like, I've never done stand up. And he was like, okay. And like rolled
So you
his
thought you were
eyes.
still doing a bit?
Yeah, I think he thought that I was like lying, but also I was like, if I did have a prepared 5, I would have gone up immediately.
Yeah.
You think I
I'm
just
like,
sat?
move out of my way.
Yeah, I was like, what? And I was like, no, I've never done stand up. And he's like, all right, okay. And then I was like, well, maybe he's on to something. Like
Mm-hmm.
I should look into it. I've always liked listening to stand up and things like that. And so then decided to take a stand up comedy class and was
Another
like,
class.
yeah, another class.
You
I'm the
grew-
queen. I'm a type A person. I
Yeah.
was like, no, this one I was recommended to from a girl that I knew. I had like met her at like a networking event, and I was telling her that I was interested in trying stand up, and she goes, "Oh, I knew a girl who did stand up, and she took it at this place, and she wasn't funny at all. And when I went to the show, she was kind of funny."
Oh wow.
Yeah, which
That's
is
a
kind of
ringing
the best,
endorsement.
yeah, recommendation you can have.
I'm not even being sarcastic. That
no,
is
but truly, yeah.
because I'm that kind of person at work. I'm a pretty intense guy
Yes.
in most aspects of my life.
Uh-huh.
So people at work will be like, "Oh, this is Brennan. He does comedy." And like at work, like the new people will be like, "No, you don't." And it's like, actually, yeah,
I do, yeah.
And then they come to a show, and it's always that you were so much funnier than I thought you would be.
Yes,
And
100%. You're like, okay.
pretty good at this.
That's cool. Well, it is. People don't understand, and this goes into my larger thing about my comedy philosophy, which I'll say quickly, which is just people don't understand. Like, everybody has a sense of humor. Everybody's like funny in their world in a sense, but like to be able to make people laugh out of context where they don't know you, they don't have any framework for you, that is like a skill set.
I say it's one of the hardest jobs in the world because we are eliciting a human reaction using only our words.
Yes.
We don't have instruments. We don't have other people.
Yes.
It's just us, a microphone, and our words.
Yeah.
And we have to elicit one of the most primal responses from a group of strangers.
Yes, a group of strangers to keep them entertained, keep them not bored off their phones.
Yeah.
Like,
And when you say it like that, you're kind of like, because I have friends who are musicians and I'll
Yes.
go to their shows. I'm like, yeah, you're cheating.
yes, yeah.
You don't care what the audience reaction is.
Yes.
You're just
100%. And if it doesn't go well, you don't really
You
even
have no
know.
idea whether
Yeah.
it goes, because people are like, you could be like, how was it? Oh, the show was great. We kept everyone entertained.
Yes.
They were talking and eating.
100%.
And you're like, oh yeah, that was your job.
Yeah, except for there's one. Have you ever seen the Tracy? It's the only musician I can think of where it was like, Tracy, the fast car, the woman who sings it. I got a fast car.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Her. There was like her very first big break was she sang that song at this like huge festival of like 100,000 people or something that Stevie Wonder dropped out of, and you can hear people like talking and just like blah blah blah. And as she's like going and people start to really hear the song, you hear the entire place just like quiet
Go
down.
quiet?
Yeah, it's like gives you chills. That's the only
That
time I've
is-
ever seen a musician where I'm like, oh, you really controlled. Like,
Yeah.
it was weird.
I do like doing that. This is totally a side rant,
Yeah.
but I do like watching those, like the voice or the audition shows.
yes.
Because I'm big on the inspirational stuff, so those will come up in my feed. feed.
Yeah.
And it's just like the guy starts singing and like the judges are kind of like, whatever. And then he'll hit a note and then they all hit their buzzer and you're like,
Yeah.
that's it, man.
Yes.
You did it.
Right. And you're like, oh my gosh, I love it. But it is true to your point where it's like, yeah, people sometimes, I had a roommate who I did not like once who was like, oh, I can't see you.
Did not
Yeah,
like once.
I did not have I had to hide my whole personality because I was like, you really struggle. But she was always like, oh, I can't really see you doing comedy. And you're like, yeah, I feel like sometimes some of the best comics are very like kind of quiet and like introverted in their real life because I hate the ones who are always on.
I say it all the time. We talked about it last week and the week before. I am an extroverted introvert.
Yeah, same. It's
When
the
it,
same.
yeah, when it comes to like if I'm on stage and
Yeah.
we're cooking, that's what we're doing.
Yes.
But as soon as I get off stage, I'm very much like, can we go? Can we go?
Yeah.
Like sometimes Tracy, my girlfriend, will bring a lot of her friends to shows, and she goes, "Oh, we're gonna come watch the show. Are you gonna like stay and hang out after?" And I love that she comes. I love that she
Yeah.
supports. But you know that feeling where it's
Yeah.
like, when I get off stage, I want to go outside, smoke a cigarette, and go home.
Yes, yeah, and like leave 100%.
Yeah.
I had a joke about being an introvert once, and this guy comes up to me after the show. He goes, "Well, you're not an introvert, obviously." I was like, "No, I am though.
Yeah.
I don't know what to tell you because you saw me for 10 minutes." Cool.
Yeah. Now all of a sudden you're like, "Oh no, I saw you saying those jokes to strangers. You're definitely a very."
But I don't know why I get why they say that in theory, but actually to me, comedy is like the most introverted thing you can do because I'm talking at you, not
Yep.
with you.
I say it all the time. It's so much easier to talk to a dark room full of strangers.
Yeah.
For a lot of us than it is to have like a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah.
I'm a little different in the sense that I was raised, like my dad was in sales. I
Uh-huh.
was raised in a very old school house where it's like you'll look at someone in the eye when you talk to them. So I got good at doing, and I've been in
Yeah.
the service industry my entire adult
Yeah.
life. So I've gotten good at like holding court and stuff.
Uh-huh.
But if someone gave me the option, I would be like, I'd rather stay home and play Xbox, honestly.
Yes, exact 100%.
Unless it's comedy, because I am obsessed with comedy. But
Yes.
like a lot of times, because Tracy will go out and do stuff with her friends, she's like, "You want to come watch the game?" And I'm like, "No,
yeah, you're like,
I'm gonna watch it at home by myself." Thank
yes,
you."
I'm good. I appreciate it, but no, thank you.
So you had a roommate who was like, "I couldn't see you doing comedy," and you were like,
Yeah.
"Bam."
Yeah, well, this is also my thing.
Was
If
this
I-
after like you had started doing it? And you
yes,
were like
yes,
in it.
when I was in New York.
Oh, okay.
I have a hard time if I like really I don't know if you're like this. There's not a lot of people who bother me in this world. I'm just kind of like go with the flow. I don't really get agitated by a lot of people.
Weird.
So
No, I'm
no,
not.
not at all.
No.
Okay, well that is how I am. And if you are somebody who is one of those people who like really bothers me, it has to be on like a high level. And there is no personality. It's like
You just disassociate.
I'm like my personality is on save mode or whatever,
Yeah.
just because I'm trying to get through the interaction with you. So I can't even be like funny and light. I'm just like, I just need this to be very clinical.
Yeah.
I'm like, hi, how are you? I'm good. Cool.
God, I have to be. I'm quite the opposite, where because I am a very emotional person.
Yeah, yeah.
Where it's very much like, "Hey,"
Yeah.
or "I'm gonna kill everyone in this room."
Yes, 100. And I totally get that.
Because I'll come into work and I try to be, like I said, I grew up in this environment and stuff. So I try to, and also it's a respect thing. Like I say hello to every single person I work with.
Yes.
From the dishwashers to the executive chef. I say hello to everybody. That's just how I was raised. It's the
Yeah.
polite thing to do. And sometimes I'll come in and I'll just be like, "Hey man, what's up?" And they're like, "You okay?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yeah man, I'm fine.
Yes.
You sure?" And I'm like, "Yes, I'm sorry." Hey, everybody.
Yes,
It's
yeah.
like, this is kind of a lot. And
Yes.
also, I'm bipolar. So it's like one of those things where it's like, it can be exhausting to try to be like, it's like, I'm saving it for the tables, man.
Yes,
I'm
yeah,
saving it.
100%. Just let me be
I
on.
gotta be on. That's my job. And
Yes.
like, I'm saving it for that.
100. I totally feel that. You're like, but right now I'm just, bare minimum for me.
So you have the friend of the friend
Uh-huh.
who says, "I wasn't funny. Now I was kind of funny."
Oh, yeah,
Take
yeah.
the comedy class.
So I started taking comedy classes at this place called Pretty Funny Women, which actually was really great. The thing that I learned when I took those classes, because everybody in comedy is so like whatever about comedy classes or whatever. I like I said, I think it's like an ear thing to me of like comedy, because sometimes you see people, it's like, I just don't think you get how to like make a joke into like something that multiple people would like understand and laugh
I
at.
completely agree with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can just hear it and you go,
Yes, yeah,
It's
you're like,
not.
it's so close, but it's off, and you don't quite know how to do it.
It's a je ne sais quoi, as it were.
Yes, 100%. I heard Andrew Schultz say once, which I like, where he was like, I don't think comedy can be learned, but it can be honed. And I agree with
Yeah.
that. Where I think, and so when I took that class, it was one of those things where I learned very quickly, like, oh, I just have an innate ability to know how to write a joke. They weren't always bangers. And like over the years, I've gotten a lot better at like performing and actually learning. But like in that first class, one of the very first jokes I wrote just was like, we were supposed to write it on the fly.
I'm
And
excited.
the teacher was just like, oh, like, you just wrote that right now? And I was like, yeah. And she was like,
Do you
oh.
remember the joke?
Oh, okay. I remember the essence of it, which is, it was something like, my last name is, my name's Vanessa Jackson, and what was it? It was something like, my last name is Jackson, and I have more in common with Michael. And I wrote for Tiger Beat magazine, so I have more in common with Michael than just my last name. It was some
Yeah.
joke about Michael Jackson molestation charges, which is like so funny because it's not my comedy at all.
It's a little off brand.
Yes, I'm such kind of like on the cleaner side of comedy, but like my very first set ever was like, my closer was about like Kim K and Ray J sex tape.
Yeah.
Like it was so.
You gotta find your voice. It takes a
Yes,
little while.
yeah, it
I
was-
remember when I first started doing because some of these joke books I have over there from like
Uh-huh.
2009 when I first started.
Yeah.
And I'll look through them and I go, you should like die. Like,
Yeah.
what is wrong with you?
Yes, yeah. You're like, what is happening?
I tried to be one of those like shock jock kind of like.
Yes. Well, I think that there's something that happens a lot when you first start comedy. Obviously, you're kind of emulating whoever is that you were obsessed with or whatever. But also, I do think that people try to go shock in two different ways. Either shocking of like, I'm going to say the most insane thing that goes against all human nature and nobody would ever actually agree with just to elicit some sort of response.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's shocking like sexual wise where it's like, oh, that was like really graphic and
Yeah.
what? And
I
then-
kind of did a combination of the two.
Yeah.
And it's funny because as I've gotten older, and because that's not who I am.
Yeah.
And as I've grown in comedy, I have like one sex joke, and it's a self-deprecating joke about me.
Yes, yeah,
Like
isn't that so
like
interesting?
I don't.
Yeah.
And even when I came back, because I got sober and came back in 2018, I had this big closer about how I like cut my own face in a fight.
yeah.
And I was like, this will always be my closer. It's so shocking and it elicits so much response.
Yeah.
And over the years, like I had a couple people come up and they go, people are laughing because they're nervous, not because it's funny. And I go, no, it's a great story. They love
Yeah.
it.
Uh-huh.
And then just over the course of the last 7 or 8 years, I'm like, oh, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yes, you start to
Like,
figure
it's
out
more
audiences.
of a podcast story than it is like an on stage, we're at a comedy club story.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I do also think when you're a newer comic too, you're like, oh, any noise is like
Yeah.
good. So
Well, and it's one of those things where when I came back into comedy, I was 30. So I started at 22.
Yes.
But I took the break between rehabs and jails and all this kind of stuff. So when I came back, I was 30.
Yeah.
So I now have all this life experience where I'm just vomiting it out on stage. It's like I have so much to talk about
Yes.
now. Whereas when you start at 22, as you gradually like things happen and then you talk about them, you turn them into jokes. But for me, it's like, oh, I have the last 8 years of all this heinous stuff that happened. I have to tell everyone about.
yes, 100%.
And none of it was joke. Like at one point, my opener, which is like 20 seconds, 30 seconds long now, at one point was 3 separate long stories,
Oh my
long
gosh.
form stories.
Yeah.
About like different arrests.
Isn't that so interesting? You just get better at like, what is the point?
Yeah.
yeah.
Because I love it now too when I see, like you were talking about earlier with the ear. When I hear comics after a joke and it maybe doesn't land or something, they go, that was too much. That was too. It took too long to get there.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, you're aware. You can hear it that
Yes.
you're like rambling. And
Yeah,
you're like,
where
okay.
you lost them, what
Yeah.
the point was.
Yeah.
It's
And
such
then
a-
you're like, I think you're gonna be all right.
Yes, it's such a fascinating thing. But yeah, I don't tell jokes like that at all anymore. But I also kind
Kim
of chalk
K
it
and
up.
Ray J.
Yes, I chalk it up to like at the time I started in 2017 technically, and the biggest comic then was like Amy Schumer.
Yeah.
And it's funny because my sister came to like the graduation show from that class, and she was like, "Oh, that's cool. You all are kind of doing like Amy." And it was
Oh,
like-
yeah, that's
And if you
true.
listen to like my very first tape of me doing stand up, the tone and cadence sounds very Amy Schumer.
Yeah, mine was Dane.
Yeah, it's so interesting.
Where the bits were very like I guess, a ripoff of Jesselnick, like trying to be shocking.
Yeah.
But the stage presence, the cadence, the walking around was very Dane. 'cause
Yeah.
That's one thing people have always told me. They're like, my dad even said this after a show he came to. He goes, you have great stage presence. Now if you could just write some jokes. And I was like, burn.
Yeah, that's so
But it's
funny.
true, like, because I watched that on repeat, like
Yes.
on that VHS, I just was like, oh, you have to move, you have to
Yes.
engage, you have to. So luckily, I did plays and stuff when I was a kid, so luckily I had that.
Yes.
But like the joke writing, like you said, it just evolves so much, because if you told me after I saw you at a show, if you came up to me and go, hey, I used to close on a Ray J,
Yeah.
Kim K sex joke, I'd be like, no, you didn't.
Yes. Yeah.
No,
You'd
you
be like,
didn't.
what?
I'd be like the teacher in the class. I'd be like, sure.
Yes. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Sure, uh-huh.
Sure you did.
Yeah, you
okay.
So you do the class, and then are you hooked? Are you like, oh, I'm doing this? Or was this another period of like.
It's very fascinating. So I did the class, and the class was really great for me because, like I said, it didn't teach me how to write a joke, but it was like all women. So it was a really good, just like safe space of learning how to do comedy. She taught us just like critical things that I know are critical now, where it's like the very first thing we did was go up on stage and be like, hi, I'm Vanessa Jackson, or take the mic out of the stand, move the stand from in front of you.
Little things you don't think about.
Yeah, which it does make you look greener because a lot of people don't move the stand from in front of them.
People do the lasso.
Yeah, yes, 100%. That's a whole, I
When
once
they're
saw
nervous?
a new comic like sit on a stool but didn't move the mic stand from in front of him. So the mic stand was just blocking, he was trying to look natural, but it just
Yeah.
made him look more
Worse.
amateurish. Yeah, which is so you don't even realize those things.
Yeah.
So it taught me a lot about, but then the thing was, and the woman who was teaching it, she had made it sound like the only way to get stage time was bringer shows. And so just me, I'd kind of been new.
My brain immediate.
I was kind of new to LA, and it was like,
That's
I
the
didn't
worst
really-
too. When I first moved to New
Yeah.
York, they're like bringers, and I'm like, the two people I know here, or the three people, is my girlfriend, Matt Fulcheron, who's a big comic,
Yes,
and Dan
yeah.
Lamore. And I was like, I don't know if I can.
Yes, I felt the exact same way where I was like, so the only way I can get stage time is to bring like 7 people. And she really made it sound like,
7. That's a big number.
Oh, it
too.
was a lot. I think for that class show, she wanted us to bring 8, but she was okay with like 5. And my whole family came, so I think I had like 5 or whatever. But
Load
like,
up the minivan.
you know what I mean? It was just
Yeah.
like, So I was just like in my head being like, I have to bring like 5 to 7 people at every show I go to. And I just don't. I remember just being like, I just don't have that
Now,
many.
were you, because you grew up in the California area?
Yes.
So were you like, oh, in your head, did you have like high school friends or college?
I
Like,
did,
what?
but the thing was, I also at the same time as taking this class, I really get into things, and so I'm doing research on like stand up and like talking to people and listening to comedy podcasts. And every comedy podcast is like, you have to get on stage 3 to 5 times a night if you have any chance of making it. So hearing you have to get on stage 3 to 5 times a night, and the only way to get on stage is to bring 7 people, was like, so I need to know
35
7.
people a day,
yeah,
yeah.
literally, I started doing the math. I was like, I don't know 700,000 people that
Yeah.
I can bring. And also at the same time too, that wasn't the only barrier. It was just like, have you done like the LA comedy scene at all?
No.
It's very different.
I have not. I have performed on one show in LA, and it was Riff Raff. Shout out Billy Myers III.
Shout
Did
out.
no material show.
Yeah.
There's 2 buckets, a riff and a raff.
So fun. We
Mike
love it.
Falzone is the king of the riff, and then Jason Ellis is the king of the raft. So.
That's epic.
Yeah, but that's the only show I've ever done in LA.
Yeah.
I literally flew out. I think I told you this. I flew out that morning,
Uh-huh.
did the show, and then flew out at 6 a.m. the next day back to New York.
Oh my
Because I was
gosh.
like, it's the Comedy Store. I
Yeah.
gotta do it.
Yeah.
So I'm not familiar with the LA scene like, at all.
That makes sense. And it was at the Comedy Store,
Yeah.
which is the whole. So it's like, to me, at least in my head, and I only did the LA scene for like 6 months. There's kind of like 2 different. There's either like you're a big comic and you're actually performing in the clubs because they really value like faces and names. So it's like it's very hard to get into
It's that
like
name value. Yeah.
Yes, 100. You have to be obviously like a really good comic. And I just started. So I was like, it's either bringers or the big shows. And then also at the mics, it was a lot of people who were like, I've been doing this for 50 years, kid. And like,
Oh, God.
we're at the same open mics. And I just remember thinking like, I don't think I want to be like 70 at open mic. Like
Yeah.
it just felt like such a sad
That
reality
is a
of people.
stark difference.
Yes.
Because in New York, it's like a new batch of like 22-year-olds every 6 months.
100%. And it was not that. And maybe it was just the mics I was frequenting, but it was a lot of people who like very desperate and were like, my agent told me this is my last shot to like make it. Like there was nobody my age. It just felt very like, why is it all like 70-year-old men who
Yeah,
are like,
try and stand
yeah,
up.
yes, and bitter.
But that I think that makes sense in my head only because people move to LA. People move. I mean, you're from there, but people
Yeah.
who move there move to be actors and models.
Yes.
So that's the first thing they try. When people move to New York, it's the mecca of comedy.
Yes.
It's for stand-up.
Exactly. And I think people had a little bit more of like, I just had found that, I really like jokes. But I think if you're like a young person moving to LA to do comedy, you have aspiration to be an actor and you're kind of moving and shaking.
You're
in a
more
different-
personality than you are a comedian.
Yes, which I think it's a lot easier.
Yeah, that's a dig.
In your faces. No. But yeah, I do think to their credit, it's a lot easier to kind of move your way up through like the club system when you're
Yeah.
kind of attaching yourself. I just didn't have any of that.
Well, it's more fluid too because it's like you go on auditions and then you
Yes,
do acting and then you do this.
100%.
But here, I mean, there are a lot of people in the comedy community who also act and do all that
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
stuff. But you know what I'm saying? Like here,
Yes.
it's like, no, comedy is the main focus.
100%.
And then everything else kind of just happens.
Yes, there you're like a multi-hyphenate.
Yeah,
It's
God.
like actor, comedian,
Producer, director,
yes,
writer.
model. Yes, 100%. And so I pivoted to
That just reminds. What do you do? Oh, I'm an actor. I'm a director. I'm a writer. Really? Can you bring me some more bread? It looks like you're a waiter. Like that's
yes.
the like.
I had a joke when I first got to New York about how the
I have a
difference
bit
between
now about
yes,
that.
LA and New York, where I was like, in LA everybody's like an actor, producer, musician, DJ, but in New York they just call it a barista. It's like,
I have a bit where I have regulars at the restaurant, and whenever they bring their friends, they go, "This is Brennan. He's a great comedian." And they go, "Oh, how's that going?" And I'm like, "I'm here on a Friday, so not great.
yes, exactly.
You want some more bread?"
Yeah, you're like, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not awesome.
Yeah, not the best, or I wouldn't be talking to you, would I?
I'd be booked at clubs right now.
Context clues, my guy. That's really funny.
So you started doing it, and then because you said you moved to New York pretty quickly.
Yeah, so then I pivoted to sketch.
Because she knew where comedy was.
Yeah, I knew. But truly, I started looking into I pivoted to sketch. So I was like, let's try this sketch thing. So I was doing sketch comedy at like Upright Citizens Brigade, Second City,
Okay, cool,
Hollywood.
cool, yeah.
And I kind of was like, maybe it's I really like writing comedy. So maybe it's the writing of comedy. And then I got hired as a writing apprentice for The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
Boom.
Yeah, which was really, really cool.
That's awesome.
Yes.
So you get hired for that from LA, and then you fly
Yes,
out.
and then I move out to New York with like 2 weeks notice, and then I got
Boy,
here.
you're doing it, boy. Oh
yeah,
boy, here
I
we
was
go.
doing it, but it was one of those things where I was like, okay, and then I'll just write for television or whatever. But I think it's like
Our brains are so
yeah, I know, aren't they crazy? But that also is the like.
That is
thing-
how it happens.
It's the thing of comedy, which I've learned now is there's always the thing where the thing you think is going to be your big break will not be your big break, but the thing you don't think is always the thing that leads to something that. But you're always like, and here's where the story begins.
There are so many times where I have done something for I don't want to get into too many details, but you do something and you're like,
Yes.
this will be the turning point. This is when it changes.
Yes.
And nothing.
Yeah,
And you're like, wait, what?
100%. You're like, this is the moment. And
Yeah.
it's not.
And then it's not. And
Yeah.
you're like, and then I've had other people point it out to me. I've had people come, like Tracy, obviously my girlfriend, who I'm contractually obligated to mention at least twice in
Of
every
course.
episode. She goes, like sometimes she'll be like, hey, why don't you do this with so-and-so? And I'm like, I don't know why I don't do that with them.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh yeah, you guys are super close. I thought this was just like how comedy worked.
Yes.
And it's like, yeah, you're right. I don't know. I don't know why.
Yes, we're always looking for. It's so funny because you have to be so like scrappy, but you're also always looking for like the thing that somebody else is gonna like figure out or give you or like whatever.
That's why I kind of gave up on. I just kind of do the thing that makes me happy,
Yes.
which is getting on stage and do. Like a friend of mine was like, "Oh, the algorithm changed. It's original content now." We were talking about this
Yes.
at the club,
Yeah.
and they're like, "So it's sketches and like face phone talking," and I
Yeah.
go, "No, I'm out. I'm not doing it. I'm just
Yeah.
not okay. I'm not doing
Yes.
it. I'm not. It'll swing back. I'm not going to do it."
One, you just gotta
And
figure
then when
out.
it swings back, I'll be here waiting.
Yes,
Like, I'm
yes.
not-
That is 100% true. You just got to go with your thing, figure it out. And like, I do think that that's the thing that leads to like the ultimate
Yeah.
success or like at least happiness at the very least.
That's the thing is I can pay my bills working where I work now.
Yes.
I still get plenty of stage time. Well, not plenty. I still get a decent amount of stage
Yes.
time. So it's like, I'm all right.
Yes,
I'm cool.
exactly.
And then eventually one of these clips will pop and you're like, all right, cool.
Yes.
Now here we go.
100%.
So for you, you get the Colbert gig, which is
Yes.
at the time, I want to know how far, you said you're about 6 months in?
To comedy. Let's see. I started comedy in like May of 2017 and then got the Colbert gig in October of 2018.
Oh, I think you say October of 2017.
No.
Jesus, prolific my ass.
Yeah, no, that would be insane.
So are you when?
So maybe like a year and a half. Yeah.
So when the Colbert thing happens,
Uh-huh.
because I love these little details. Are you what is the exact what happens? How does it happen? Does someone
my
is like,
gosh.
send in a writing pack or what happens?
No, this is okay. This is the most random thing ever, and I want to do a disclaimer because I have to do a disclaimer every time I say this because I completely reset all of the information that I've always told everybody, which is that writing jobs, writing opportunities, like things like that, you don't usually find them through just like internet posts or whatever.
Yeah, I would assume it's knowing somebody.
100%. No, so this was on LinkedIn. I know. And I hate it because everybody now is like, well, there you go.
Don't go to LinkedIn. Don't do it.
Don't do it. But weirdly enough, it was on LinkedIn. So they have this like apprenticeship program. And I basically, when I got there, was like, I have an interest in writing. So I just want to spend time with the writers.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like a post-grad program. In theory, they want people who have like graduated from college who are in the working field because they do give you like health insurance. It is like a
Is
job.
it paid?
Yes, it's paid.
Okay.
You're part of the staff. So they have like interns and then they have just like apprentices is what they call you. So you're part of the staff, and their whole thing basically is to show you a full ranging view of what it's like to work at a late night show. So they want you to move from like production to social media to writing to whatever.
Yeah.
And I also think they've since changed it because of me. But
You're an innovator.
yeah,
A pioneer.
or annoyed the crap out of people. I got there and I was like, well, I want to do writing. They had me with the talent team for like a month, and I said,
What
this
is the
not-
talent team?
So it's the people who like when the celebrity guests
Wrangle
are there,
them,
they
the
like
wranglers.
Yes, they wrangle them. They clean the dressing rooms. They get the dressing room ready. They have like the
I said wrangle like a rodeo, and I thought you were
Yeah.
gonna be like, yeah, they clean the shit up off the
Oh
floor.
yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
what
it's
are
a
you-
whole thing. Whenever they get messy, no, it's like their liaison at the show when they get there.
And
It's
you
like
hated
this. It was not my thing at all.
it. I don't. Yeah, it takes a
Yeah.
different kind of person to
You
be like.
yes, you have to have a lot of energy. You have to be okay
of
with
patience.
dealing a lot of patience. You got to deal with people who are like insane in a weird way because it's never really the celebrities. It's always kind of the people around them
Yeah.
who you're like dealing with. Like
I've had that happen at the restaurant where I've
Yes.
had big comedians come in and their agent has been like a total asshole.
Yes, yeah.
And they've been nice.
100%.
And I'm like, is the agent running interference? Because when they leave here, the comic's going to turn to him and be like, why the fuck did you let that person talk to me?
Yes.
Or
You never
is
know.
the agent just a psycho?
Exactly, 100. And then sometimes you end up giving them the flack because you're like, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
I remember we had, I think it was, I shouldn't maybe say the rap. Who cares? It was Lil Wayne. His somebody on his team was like obsessed with getting him a Keurig and was like, we need him to have a Keurig and you guys need to send. And we were like, we're not going to send an intern to grab a Keurig. And it was like this whole thing, and we're getting yelled at. And then it turns out she just forgot to pack his Keurig and was trying to not get in trouble.
Trying to get one
before-
for free?
Yes, before he like
Yeah.
arrived and found out that she didn't bring his Keurig. And it was just like things like that where I was just like,
You
this
never
is-
know where the line is. If
Yes.
it's them or if it's
but you're just like, I just don't want it. I don't have the energy for it.
Yeah.
I'm not very like
Because I've seen Entourage enough where
Yes.
it's like, oh, it could be the person who
Yes.
just doesn't want to be the bad guy.
100%, but you don't know.
Or yeah. So
Yeah.
you were like, I'm out on this.
Yeah,
You're
and
like,
so-
I just wanted to write jokes.
Yes, and so I told them after a month, I was like,
You've been doing comedy over a year and you
Yeah.
get there and they're like, hey, go get a Keurig. And you're like, what?
yeah, I'm like, wait, I don't, huh? And so I asked one of the producers, I was like, okay, can I transition to the next
Can I
phase
do
of
it now?
this? Yeah. And so she was like, yeah, what department do you want to go to next? And I said, writing. I was like, I'd prefer to just be in writing. And so they let me go to writing, and you're supposed to transition like every 2 or 3 months, and I just stayed there the full 9 months. I
Oh,
was just-
really?
yeah, I was like, you're not moving.
Which is why, yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is, the pitfall of that was, it was great. I got to like sit in on all the meetings. I got to help with the
that's
right.
awesome.
It was awesome. I got to a lot of the shout out to she's the head writer now, but like Ariel Dumas was really
Shout out.
shout out. Well, because when you get in these shows, a lot of times people are kind of like, they can treat the lower level people or whatever in different
Like
ways.
dog
but
shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
she was really great about being like, I see that you want to be a writer and I see that you're a comedian. So like she would message me on Slack secretly and be like, you can pitch jokes on this. Like, go ahead, I'll give you the go ahead, which is like, sometimes that's really
That
all.
is super empowering.
100, because sometimes genuinely all you need is somebody to be like, we want to hear your voice on this, or like, what are your thoughts? And so
it can go the other way. I mean, I sports my whole life, so I see it that way, where it's like sometimes the quarterback can be like, yeah, I'll teach you everything I know, and sometimes they're like, you're not taking my fucking job, man.
Yes, 100%. There can be a lot of egos involved, but everybody was there. Greg Owinski, who was a writer when I was there too, was also really good. He was another black writer.
Shout out to Colbert.
Yeah, but truly, I mean, I will say, to give Stephen Colbert credit, and he gets a lot of credit, is he was like a really cool example of how to run a show, because he brought with him like people he'd been with for like 20 years, like
from like the Daily Show and stuff.
From like the Colbert Report, like people from his Second City days, like there were people there who were producers who was like, yeah, we came up together in Second City. And
did you get to meet Stephen?
Yeah, well, that also made it cool, because it was like there was no like Stephen Colbert, because it was like he was literally working with his buddies from like years and years ago, from like his comedy troupe days.
I could see them being like, fuck that guy.
Yes, it was very, in like a great way.
Yeah,
it was
in like
very,
the best way possible.
Yeah, at other shows, people were like, I don't know, should we run this by Steven? And like an AD would be like, yeah, I'll go to his office right now. Like it was just very like, yeah, I know he knows all these people. He's worked with them for years and years and years. And so that
makes me feel good.
Yes.
Because sometimes I get nervous about that kind of stuff.
Yes, 100. It set a really, really cool environment where I was like, oh, if I ever get the chance to like do anything that high level, that's how you want to do it. You want to have people you trust, and also people who you've like, he's kept a lot of people employed for like decades at this point.
And he knows that they're not gonna. This is why I love Jon Stewart too, is because they know, like in their environments, they know people aren't just gonna tell them what they want to hear. They're not gonna have a bunch of yes people around.
100%.
Because I've seen it the other way, where very famous comedians, some would say one of the most famous comedians, I've seen their sets recently, and it's just them kind of drunk babbling, and you go, oh, no one's around to be like, yo, what the fuck are you doing?
Yes, because that also is a pitfall, is when too many people are on the payroll, you don't get people who are like really honest with you. They're like, you are the best, keep it up. Anyways, can you refill my Amex? It's like, yeah, it's dangerous.
So when you get the Colbert thing,
what
was when you get it, you just filled out the LinkedIn thing, when you get the call to be like, you got it, were you like, I'm going to New York?
Yes, I did the LinkedIn application. Then they had to do like a preliminary interview, and then they had to do like, I think I did send writing samples at that point. I like did an interview with the two producers of the show, or two of the head producers, and then they called me to tell me that I got it, which was really, really cool.
Were you running around?
Yes, I was like freaking out.
Because I'm 36, and still, if I got that call, I'd be like, yeah.
100. I was freaking out. It was awesome. It was one of those like, I did it. But it was great.
I made it.
Yes,
it's over.
Mom, I made it. The only pitfall, it was a 9-month program, and the whole thing was they wanted people to like go from department to department.
Yeah.
And obviously, as a comedy show and
like,
a comedy writer,
I'm staying here.
Yes, but also they can't just be like, it's not like a job where they can just be like, and now that you've been here, you are hired as a writer.
Yeah.
So the jobs that they had open were like footage producer or social media. So they were like, you could stay at the show, but we only have like, they want to hire people on from the program basically. But for me, it was like, I think the only job they had open was footage producer, which would require you to get up and like at the show at like 6 a.m.
Yeah, that's just like logging.
Yeah,
stuff, isn't it?
yeah. It was a lot of that. It would require long hours, and my whole thing was like, I moved to New York to do comedy.
Yeah,
and I don't want to like, look back in 10 years and be like, oh, I'm a really cool footage producer, but like I didn't do the thing I actually came here for.
You're an EP on a bunch of cool stuff 15 years from now, but you're like, but I never got to do stand-up.
Exactly. And there was a lot of people who I talked to at that show, and just really any show, who are always like, oh yeah, I also moved to New York to do comedy. And you're like, oh, okay.
What do you do now? I do the clapper thing.
Yeah, which is cool if that was your goal.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people I talked, it was not their goal.
My dad put it very well when I went home last time. He goes, how's New York? I go, I said pretty much the same, doing the podcast, going to open mics, doing shows.
Yeah.
It's literally the same as Jacksonville. He goes, no, you did it. You moved. And you're like,
yes.
Oh yeah, I did do it.
You took
like,
a chance. You're doing it.
Yeah. Like we're the heroes in the story.
100%. You forget that a lot of times.
Yeah, because that's why I've talked about it before, but that's why I have the wall up.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times I'm like, oh, I haven't done anything, and then I look and oh no, you've done some cool stuff.
Yes, you have to remind yourself
because it can be very painful.
Yes, and as a person, you just kind of skim over it. You're like, I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they didn't have like any job in the writers' room or anything like that. So I ended up deciding to leave. And it's so funny because I left the show in 2019, I think they renewed my contract a couple times. So I think I was there longer than 9 months. Maybe it was like a year. And I left in December of 2019, and I was like, okay, I have some money saved up. My rent,
that's good.
Yeah,
So
my rent was low. They paid well, and I
That's
had
what I was gonna
really
say,
cheap
yeah.
rent in Washington Heights. I think I was paying like $750 a month.
Woo!
Yeah, it was like ideal. So then I had money saved up. I was like, okay, I'll take a couple months where I look for jobs, and then the pandemic happened.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I forgot about that.
Like 3 months later, and I was like, oh no that's not good. Thank you to those stimmy checks.
Yes.
Those helped a lot. And yeah, was unemployed for a while. I think like maybe 6 or 7 months. It was a while.
We had such a different reaction in
Yeah.
Florida. We were closed for 3 months, and then I got a call. It was my restaurant. And they're like, "You want to come back to work?"
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, "All right, this is July of 2020."
Yeah.
And then in December of 2020, I did a show in Georgia for 250 people.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, very different. New York was like, we
Got
are
COVID.
locked down, y'all.
Yeah, because I was
Nobody-
doing Zoom calls with friends like in New York and LA, and they're
Yeah.
like, "What do you mean you have work? What are you talking about?"
Oh my gosh.
It's
They're
like,
like,
"Yeah, we're back at work, baby."
oh yeah, we were not there. Yeah, so it was locked down for a while, and then got my first writing job at the end in November of 2020.
Okay.
Is that correct? Yes.
Where did you, if you don't mind saying, like, where
It
did
was
you come
a
back to?
show called A Little Late with Lily Singh. It was
Okay.
on after Seth, and it replaced a show that Carson Daly used to have for 15 years that nobody
Last
knew
Call.
existed. Yeah.
Oh, I know.
Did you?
I've
Were
had
you a
friends,
fan?
I've had friends do stand up on that show.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was. I just remember.
I
being-
was too young to like submit for
Yes.
it because I wasn't like in comedy.
Yeah.
But I have a couple of friends like Matt Fulstrom, my buddy, who's out in LA now, but he's like one of my best friends. I remember back in like 2012 or 13 when I
Yeah.
first like became a real big fan of his.
Uh-huh.
I like stayed up late to watch his set on
That's
it.
so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was one of those shows they announced it was getting canceled, and everybody was like, sorry, what show?
Yeah,
What's
because it
that?
was on forever
For, like,
'Cause
15
The
years.
threshold for viewership at that time is like minimal.
Yes. Oh,
as long as
one-
you get like 5,000-10,000, I'm assuming.
Yeah,
they're
they were
just
like, we
yeah,
don't care.
Let
Yeah.
it run. Who cares?
Yes, exactly.
This is Carson Daly. It's TRL.
Yes,
Come on.
they're like it has name recognition. Just keep paying him. And so so then that replaced that show for 2 seasons, but I was only on the second season.
Okay.
And it was very clear we were gonna get canceled. So
You know that
quickly.
as a writer, you know that in the room.
I remember thinking no, because the room was really fun. The head
I was
writer.
going to say because that is kind of a
Yeah.
juxtaposition because you're like, no, I'm the one creating these bits. Like these are good bits.
Yes, everybody in the room was really fun. I got to work with some of the best people. The head writer was Chelsea Davidson. She was awesome. Nimesh Patel was there. He was great. A lot of really great, funny comics. The thing was, they clearly, I think like 3 weeks in, and you've seen late night shows. You
Yeah.
see how many graphics they use on everything. Like 3 weeks into the new season, they were like, so we don't have a budget for pictures.
And you were like, oh, we're out.
Yeah, that's what a late night show is.
That's
graphics.
the whole thing.
I was like, what do you mean? They
You've
were
seen
like,
the Daily Show? They've got like 4 different
Yes.
cameras, 12 different things going on.
yeah, they literally were like, we're not paying for photos. Like, you can't do. I was
Getty's
like,
expensive. I don't know if you know this, Vanessa.
literally,
Getty's expensive.
it is expensive. But the fact that they were like, this is
Nah,
not
we're
gonna be
out.
on. Yeah, they were like, it's not gonna be on very long. Just cut their photo budget. Was
God,
like,
that is an interesting thing to be in the room because also I could imagine with your different writing credits, you've been in the room before and they're like, nah, we're actually not going to use this. We're going to go a different way. And you're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
no, this is good. What you're talking about is dog. Like, it's bad.
100%.
You're like, just use what I'm telling
Yes.
you to use.
Oh my gosh, that's happened
'Cause
so many times.
I'm assuming the head writer and the EPs and all those people make those decisions.
Yes, 100%. And also
I could
sometimes.
not because there's so many
Yeah.
times where you're sitting in the back of a comedy club and a comic's on stage and people are like laughing, but you're like, this isn't good.
Yes, yeah, 100%. Or you're just trying to convince people. A lot of times, too, it'll just be like references. You're like, this is a thing people care about. And people are like, nah.
Yeah.
And you're like,
They're like saying YOLO, and you're like, that was 15
Yes,
years ago, man.
Yes. To their credit, though, there was one thing that I fought for on Lily Singh, which was a piece about Olivia Rodrigo's song Driver's License, which was huge at the time. And I remember telling all of them about this song and explaining it and why I'm passionate and why everybody's talking about it. And one of the head producers was like, so it's a song about a teen girl who got broken up with. And she was like, how is that relevant for a 30-year-old woman to talk about on a network? And I was like, trust me, it is. And people are talking about this. And they were like not convinced, which rightfully so.
Yeah,
they were
'cause,
like,
yeah.
what is this
Outside
song?
looking in, you're like, what?
Yes.
You're like, no, it comes from in here.
Yes, I was like,
you
it's
just
the-
feel it.
Yes, I was like, it's the biggest thing on the internet, and the monologue ended up doing really, really well. They like let me write it, which was awesome. They had a lot of trust in being like, she's telling. At that point, I was the youngest person in the room, so they were like, if she's telling us this is relevant, then maybe it is, and it did really well, and it like went viral. And I was like, I told you,
You did it.
Yes, I did.
That's gonna stink though sometimes because you don't get credit for it.
I know, yeah. You're just like, guys, I want you to know that I was the one who came up with this.
You
okay.
just hit in the comments.
Yeah.
Every other comment. That's my bit. That's
yes,
my bit. That's
which
my bit.
is good and bad. Like at SNL, it was good because like nobody knows who wrote things, so you get to tell people.
Bury the lead.
Yeah, holler. You get to tell people, or like, oh, this thing I wrote was awesome. It's great. And then if something does bad, you just never mention
Yeah,
it.
you go. I don't. What?
Yes, yeah. Where cast, it's like they're in the thing, so
Yeah.
it's like, oh, you were in that.
Remember when you
stinker.
did that really stupid one and you're like, I didn't even write that one.
Yes.
That was somebody else's
Yeah,
idea.
yeah, exactly. You're like, that's crazy. I don't
Yeah.
know who wrote that.
So when did you get SNL?
I got SNL. So Lily Singh got canceled in like May of 2021. I got or maybe it was February of 2021. And SNL did at the time, and I think it's because it was after the pandemic and a bunch of sketch houses were like closed down and stuff. They did open submissions.
Okay.
So a lot of times the difference between, do you know, like closed and
Yeah.
closed for people who don't know is
For the
like,
uninitiated.
Yes, is like when they do a closed submission, it means they're only taking submissions from like agents or managers who are like, hey, I have a client, here's their packet. But
Yeah.
they did for some reason that year open submissions, and I think they had done it a couple times before too, where you can just anybody. There was like a link or an email, and anybody
Yeah.
could send their
Open
packet in.
tryouts, baby.
Yes,
Here we
yeah.
go.
They're like, hey, anybody
We've all
in
seen
the
Invincible with Mark Wahlberg.
Yes, yeah. What? Yes, exactly. Like anybody in the world who wants. So yeah, I submitted a packet in like May. I want to say in May of 2021, I submitted a packet. Or no, July, because it was
Okay.
July 15th every year. That was like the third one I think I'd ever submitted.
So
But-
July 15th.
Yes, but
every
truly,
year.
every year it is. The deadline's July 15th. And so
People just start flooding.
I
their
know,
inbox.
exactly. They're like, actually, hey guys, I heard you're looking right now. So yeah, July 15th, I submitted a packet, and then I heard back in September. I got an email that was like, for some reason they emailed.
Did you submit and just forget about it?
At
Because
that
it's
point,
one of
yes.
the, like I do that all the time now. Like
Yeah.
people are like, "Oh, you should write a book. You have all these stories." So I just literally sent like my one-man show
Yes.
to like 19 different publishing houses, and then I'm just like, all right, forget about
At
it.
a certain point, and I've done a lot of packets over my time, and at a certain point you have to.
You just
because
send
you'll
it and you're like,
drive
"All right,
yourself
cool." Yeah.
crazy doing this thing where like, are they going to respond? And also it was like I submitted in July and hadn't heard anything. This is by September. So we're talking July, August. Yeah.
So like almost 2 months.
Yeah, so it was one of those things where you're kind of paying attention for like the first 3 weeks, and
Yeah.
then you're like, I haven't heard anything.
That is
cool.
the one thing about rejection, especially in our industry,
Yes.
is you get so accustomed to it. Like now I'll just submit to festivals
Yes.
and like forget that I've even submitted to them.
Yes, 100%. I actually prefer when people don't even submit rejections. A lot of times writing packs, they don't. It's just like you didn't get it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
it's interesting because like I was talking to my manager about this a couple weeks ago because he was like, "Hey, did you submit to that thing?" And I sent you, and I was like, "Yeah, of course." And then in my head, I was like, "I don't know. I submit to a lot of stuff, and then they never like if you don't get accepted, they'll never message you back." So
Yes.
it's like, shit, did I submit to that or did I not?
100%. You're like, wait a second, I think I did. Yeah, so I heard back in September, I got like an email from one of the assistants there who was like, hey, SNL wants to bring you in for an interview. Yeah, which was crazy.
As a writer, because you're not going in as a
Yeah, as a
player.
writer.
So as a
Uh-huh.
writer, is it a more because we've all heard the audition process.
Oh, yes,
for,
yes, yes. As a writer,
player.
I had only submitted for a writing packet. So as a writer, they were like, they want you to come in and interview on this date at this time. It was like a Tuesday at like 5 p.m.
So it's,
And
okay.
yeah, it was very random. So I go to 30 Rock, and it's funny because
So cool.
yeah, there was another girl there, and she happened to be another black woman, and she.
There's only room for one. of
Yes,
us.
I know. Well, we both got to the counter at the same time. She was like, "I'm here for my SNL like interview," and for a second, I was like, "If I walk up there and there's 50 black women." oh, I'm gonna revolt. I was like, that would be the most
gonna start a
amazing.
riot.
Do you know what I mean? Where they're like, we just brought in all the black women.
Yeah.
I was getting
Any
like,
black sounding name,
yes,
we brought him in.
I was like, oh, I'm gonna be heated.
Vanessa with 2 N's?
Yes.
Call her up.
Yeah, bring her
Call
in.
her up.
She's a black one. Yeah, I was like, if this is like a black call. Woo! Because that's not good.
No.
Nothing would be good about that. So then we both get up there, and no, it was like there was 6 other people in total of all different races and genders. And I was like, okay, we're safe. It was funny though, because me and the other black girl were both wearing a blazer. And one of the guys goes, are you guys here to interview us? Because it was a comedy interviews are so casual. Like we were dressed up so
Yeah,
which
I've done that before
yeah,
too.
my thing is always like, I think it's better to be overdressed and look like you cared than like walk in and they're
Will Ferrell
all
and Step Brothers showing
Yes.
up in a tux. We're here to fuck shit up.
Yes, exactly. 100%. So yeah, I was at a table of 6, and so then I was like, what is happening? And then one by one, there was a room of head writers, and then there was a room of producers.
So it's like Shay and Jost and those guys?
No, it was Jost is a producer. Che's not a producer, but he is a.
I thought
sorry,
they were
he's
like
a
co-head writers.
He's a head writer, but their head writer's a Weekend Update. I was on the sketch team.
Okay.
And Jost is kind of a.
Oh, so
head-
that's separate from the whole thing.
Yes, there's a Weekend Update team and there's a sketch team.
Okay.
The Weekend Update team has like 4 writers and then Jost and Che.
Okay.
Is it 4 right? Yeah, 4 writers and then Jost and Che, and then there's the sketch team. So I was there for the sketch team. And
That's got to be a big room.
yeah, the room of producers was like Jost. It was Steve Higgins, who is most known for like being Jimmy Fallon's sidekick.
Yeah.
But he's like a big head guy there, and then.
That is our lives.
Yes, yeah.
What like if we go our job title? I'm actually kind of a big deal at SNL.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I know you as the sidekick.
I know, isn't that crazy?
yeah,
the
cool.
one like front facing.
Yeah, awesome.
Yes, you're
I'm
like,
actually
cool.
kind of a big deal,
Yeah.
but all right, cool.
Yeah, that's the thing I do. So yeah, and then like 3 other women who are producers there, and then the head writers room was like Streeter Seidel, Anna Dresden.
yeah.
And then like
The gang.
Yes, yeah, all the basics. And it's been, I always say for comedy interviews, it's always kind of just like very casual. At that
Is it
point,
intimidating though to walk in and see all those faces?
it is, but it's also like, and somebody told me this, which maybe is the best advice I got before I ever did my first writing interview, is like, once you are there, they've seen as a comedy writer, they need to know that you can write comedy. So
And
if
they
they bring
already
you
know
in
that.
for an interview, they liked your stuff. They already know you can write comedy.
Yeah.
The interview is basically to make sure you're not a psychopath.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of times people try to go in these comedy interviews being like, I got to show them I'm funny. You do not.
You've already done that.
Yes, you have to show them that you are not a crazy person that they're going to run into at 1
That'd be
a.m.
so bad. I'd
Yeah.
walk in and be like, "Yo, Jost, how's Scarlett?
Yeah.
What's up with the Black Widow?
Exactly. Yeah, what's happening? They're like, okay, and you're welcome. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Yes, it was. It's so funny because
We should all get dinner sometime.
Yeah.
You guys want to get dinner? I know a great place. I was just working there last week, but now I don't have to work there
But
anymore.
now I'm here. It is
I
though.
already quit.
Yes, you're like, is that okay? Where's my office? It is though kind of weird because it makes you kind of feel like you're like being tricked, only because the questions are so casual, where you're like sitting there being like, okay, so they're like, where are you from? And you're like, Rancho Cucamonga, unless that's not where you want me to be from.
Yeah.
Or like, who's your
I
favorite?
could be from wherever you want me to be.
Yes, who's your favorite comedian? And you're like,
Who's your favorite comedian?
Yes, it feels very like
Oh,
that.
I know exactly how I would react.
Where everything where they're like, what's your favorite like SNL sketch? What's your favorite cast member? And you're like, should I say? Or like, the only question that I didn't think I thought through a lot was they were like, who do you think you would write for the best on the cast? And I didn't think of that as a question beforehand.
Did you watch a lot of SNL at the time?
Yes, I did. Yeah,
I would like freeze up and be like, Chris Farley.
Well, that's the thing that was, because it was like a question where I was like, oh, there are people who I would like to write for. Like I thought Ego Nwodum and Punky Johnson, who I ended up writing for a lot. But yeah, it was
Punky's
just
the
one of those
best.
questions where I was like, oh, that was an out of left fielder I didn't
Yeah.
think about. Cool. But yeah, I was afraid that I was going to say, because that is a thing too, because when you watch, and I grew up on SNL too, so you're like, don't mention someone or something who like left 3 seasons ago. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing worse
Andy
than
Samberg,
that.
The Lonely Island.
Yes. And they're like, okay, what? So yes.
It is crazy too because, obviously you worked there, but I'm at the age now where, and living in New York as long as I have, where
Yeah.
people I know or people who like 1 degree or 2 degrees of separation away
Yeah.
from a lot of the cast members, and you're
Yes.
kind of like, oh, this is weird, man.
Yeah.
Like
well,
I know someone who's pretty in with them.
Yes, 100%.
Or I know that person like I've met
yes,
them
you
on a
start to
mic
get
or,
farther,
like,
and you're like, oh, I do know these people. The interesting thing for
That's
that.
another weird thing when you watch TV.
Yes, you'll see people who you're like, oh,
I'm like,
yes,
oh.
it gets strange, 100%.
Especially when I go back home to Florida.
Yeah, yes.
And I'll be sitting on the couch with my dad, and I'll be like, "Oh, it's my buddy."
Yes.
He goes, "Yeah, sure." And I go, "I can call him right now if you want me to."
Yeah.
Do you want me to FaceTime him to prove a point, Dad?
Yes, my sister will get mad at me because she'll send me like clips, and I'll be like, oh, I know that person. She's like, I don't care. Stop doing that. And I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah, you're famous. We got
yes.
it.
She's like, I just thought it was a funny clip. And I'm like, okay, whatever.
That's my friend. I did that at the restaurant one time.
Oh, really?
The guy was watching a clip of Caitlin Palufo, friend of the podcast, and I walked by, and he was on a date.
Yeah.
He's like staring at his phone, and I'm as the server, I'm like cleaning up the table, and I go, "Oh, Caitlin Palufo, she's hilarious. That's a good friend of mine." And he just looks up and he goes, "Were you just staring at my phone?" And I was like, this is awkward.
Technically,
bye.
yes. Yeah. But also, she's great.
Yeah, but she's very funny.
It's so funny.
It's so weird when you think you have a connection with someone.
Yes.
And then they just,
They
like
make
your
it
sister,
weird.
they just immediately are like,
Yeah.
no, I just wanted to, yeah.
100%.
I do it. I constantly do it at the restaurant.
Same. You're
I'll
like,
hear
"Oh,
people talking
same
about
shirt."
Florida, and I'll be like, "Oh, what part?" And they're like, "Excuse me," and I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna
That's always
go.
the worst thing. You're like, we're wearing the same hoodie. And they're like, and?
Yeah.
And you're like,
cool.
oh.
You're a grown up who can shop for themselves. Awesome.
Yes, yeah. You're like, okay, wow, cool. Thought we were gonna be
So,
best
how
friends.
long were you at SNL for?
3 seasons.
Damn!
Yeah, I know, which feels
You're a
very.
vet.
Yeah, I know. It does feel like that. There is
Well, because
a joke.
there's so much turnover
Yeah,
there.
so much turnover, and it feels like people are either there for like a couple seasons or like 40 years.
Yeah.
Like there is no in between.
Are you so you were going to like 30 Rock every day and stuff?
Yeah,
That's so cool.
I know.
That's the thing.
That's the thing. It never got old in that way where you would walk in and be like, "Oh my gosh, this is an iconic
What's
thing."
up, Jay?
Yeah,
What's
like
up?
yeah, I was joking with people because the first day on the job feels so normal, but then at the same time you're like, "Hi, AD Bryant, can you teach me how to use the printer?" Like
Yeah.
it's such like an office environment and also not. It feels
yeah.
crazy.
God, that sounds like it was a
Yeah,
blast.
it really was. It was like really fun. It was a
And
lot
now, do you have like, are you still in that world at all?
of. What do you mean?
Like, you still know, obviously. Like,
Oh,
you-
yeah. I'm
Did you
still,
like stay in touch with a lot of people? And
100%. Yeah, I'm still good friends with a lot of people who are still there, and like, yeah,
Because that's comedy. Comedy, and I say this all the time, is like, it's like we only have each other.
yeah,
Like,
yes.
we don't have a union. We don't have all this kind of stuff. Like, I mean, obviously you do as a writer, but you know what I mean? Like, as
Yes.
comics, it's like, no, we're all like got to stick together.
Well, that's what I don't think a lot of people understand is everybody's always trying to network up, and it's like you need to network around. And
Mm-hmm.
networking to me is just like being friends with people and like having people know that you're good at something,
That's a
and
great
that's how you
point.
get opportunities. But a lot of times people would try to like screw over like the person who you're coming with in open mics because I got this opportunity with this bigger comic, or I'm gonna try to schmooze this person, and it's like, well, the people around you are gonna be the people like
Every time I've tried to network up,
Yeah.
like we were talking about earlier,
Yeah.
it's failed miserably.
yes, yeah,
And I've even gone out of my way to like do things for people that are like kind of a big deal.
yeah.
And they don't even, because they are so far up,
Uh-huh.
they don't even notice it because they're like, of course you would do that for me
Yes.
because I'm who I am.
Yes, 100%.
And I'm like, oh yeah, like, and so like the occasions where I have tried to network up,
Uh-huh.
it's been a miserable experience because you're like, I'm killing myself like trying to get this stuff done for that person, and they just think like, yeah, of course you would, like
Yes.
I'm me.
100. And I think it's like one of those things too where it's like, yeah, sure, there's that idea that some big comic will see you from the back of a comedy whatever club
Yeah.
and be like, oh, I need to take this person on the road. And sure, that could possibly happen, but also more realistically, a lot of times it's like those people already have their stable
Yeah.
of like 7 people that they know who they bring on the road. So it's like the other people who you're coming up with who like
It's your friends that pop,
yes,
and
they
then they're
get
like,
bigger.
hey, let's go.
Yes,
I tell people all the
100%.
time. There's a bunch of people I came up with, and we're all kind of darker comics, and
Uh-huh.
are like are the material. And I'm always like, if I ever pop, we're doing a Broken Toys tour. Like, 'cause
Yeah.
that's it. Like I've already got the name of it. I'm like, because we all talk about like really dark stuff, and it'll be
Yes.
fun, and like we're all friends. But that's the thing is, it's like it's not going to be. You know, Sam Morril comes into the restaurant a lot. He's not going to be like, you know what, Brennan, you're hilarious. Screw Gary Veter. You're going to open for me now. Like,
Yes.
that's not going to ever happen.
100%. And it's like, yes, there are those stories and those can possibly happen, but really it's truly just the people that you're around who you see, who you like, take
Yeah.
up with you.
It's the best. I want to talk about a couple of things because we did not
Oh, yeah, we didn't get
do
to
any
the thing.
stories. What time are we at? Oh God.
12:30.
All right. So we got to I got to ask you just about a couple of these things.
Okay.
The biggest one I want to ask you about is the Common story.
Okay, great. That might be
The
the most interesting
rapper Common.
the only interesting one. So that is perfect, actually. Basically, this is the only because I don't get into. I'm very much a goody two shoes.
Yeah.
I don't have
Where
a lot
did
of
you end up
drinking
going to
stories.
college?
Colorado Christian University.
Okay, so.
yeah, it's like as good
Because you had sent me the thing about punch parties, and I was like, oh, Georgia.
Yeah, that was going to be the joke about
USC.
like I went to a Christian school, and so anytime we had like any sort of party, they would put pictures of like car accidents and stuff up just to remind you what can happen if you drink and drive.
They really did that.
Really did.
That's insane.
It was kind of crazy, yeah. But I loved it. It was a great school. But yeah, that was that story. No, the Common one actually is, maybe just the only most interesting one. This is actually when I worked at Colbert.
Okay.
So when I was part of the talent team, I was responsible for like cleaning up dressing rooms and stuff at the show. And one day, I think it was my birthday weekend actually, there was like a Friday, right, where the interns and stuff were cleaning up the green rooms. And so one of them came to me and she goes, hey, when we were cleaning up one of the green rooms, we found this scarf in the dressing room. Where do we bring it or whatever? And I was like, oh, I'll bring it to one of the producers on like Monday or whatever. I'll just put it here. So I brought the scarf or put the scarf under my desk. And I was like, so that nobody took it or whatever. And I was like, I'll bring it to the producer on like Monday. Monday comes. I totally forgot there was like a scarf there. Tuesday comes. Didn't remember there was a scarf. I was like, whatever. Wednesday comes. I walk into the office. My phone starts blowing up. I start getting all these texts from people being like, we need to talk to you right now. Is there a scarf? Do you have a scarf with you? I go, what? Wait, where's the scarf? My phone starts ringing. I answer. I go, hi. And it was one of the producers, Jamie. She goes, do you have a scarf? And I go, do I have a scarf? She goes, the intern said they brought you a scarf. Do you have that scarf?
What a
and
rat.
I go, yeah, rat. I was
The
like,
intern was just like, gave it to Vanessa.
yes, yeah. I was like, Vanessa has it. Also, I was just like, yeah, I have a scarf. What are you guys talking about? She was like, do you have it in the building with you? And I'm like, yeah, I'll bring it upstairs to you. This was on a Wednesday. I bring it upstairs. All the producers are sitting in a room. I walk in a room, right? They're all like, where have you had this scarf? And I go, under my desk. What's happening right now? They go, this is Common, the rapper, his Burberry scarf. They have been looking for this scarf. They were threatening to sue the show, some sort of dramatic thing for a scarf. And I'm like, for this scarf?
Also, if it was that important, he wouldn't have left it.
He wouldn't have left it. I was like, what is going on? They they were like, did you bring this home with you? Did you take this around? I'm like, in my head also, to know me, I don't know anything about fashion.
Yeah.
So I wasn't like, this is a fancy scarf. This is the
Were
first
you a
I'm
Common
hearing.
fan? Were you
Not
like, oh my
even
God, this
really.
is Common scarf?
Not really. I'm not even like, it felt like a thing where I was like, I'm not even like a Common groupie. I didn't know whose scarf. The interns literally come to me and they go, we have a scarf. And I go,
So you didn't
cool.
even know whose it was?
I didn't know whose it was. To me,
You were just like, oh, this is pretty soft.
yeah, to the untrained eye, just looked like a scarf. I was like, let me put it under my desk. I'll bring it up on Monday. I come to find out they made this a huge thing. I go and Google the scarf, and it's like a $2,500 scarf or something. Where I was like, I thought this was a Target scarf. I didn't know. Yeah, they had to call his people and apologize and blah blah blah. And I was just like, for a scarf? It was the craziest.
That's insane.
I thought I was gonna lose my job. I was like, what
Over
is
a
going
scarf.
over a scarf?
Wow.
Yeah. And also, I was like, you guys thought I brought it home with me? And
Brought it to your friends and stuff?
Yes. What would I do? Also, I clearly brought it up immediately.
People
it wasn't like
so
I had
insane,
People freak out about the littlest things.
Well, especially in those positions because, as talent, we're kind of like, oh, we're creatives. This is we have something that cannot be taken away.
Yes.
Whereas, and this is no shade, even though it's going to come off that way. If you're a producer, there's a lot of people who can produce shows.
Yes.
So if you get fired, that's it.
Yes, 100%.
So I understand. I guess I can kind of see we have to find this scarf or else we're all fired, and then God forbid.
Yes, exactly.
Whereas us, we're like, okay,
yeah,
we'll go submit some more packets.
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. It's okay. Yeah.
This was fun.
This was really fun.
Plug everything one more time.
Very Vanessa, 2 N's, 2 S's. What else?
2 V's. Very Vanessa.
Yeah, 2 V's. I love it. Yep. You can, New York Comedy Festival show, November 14th, 8:30 p.m. at the Tiny Cupboard.
Boom. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, so much for listening at BrennanTComedy.com. Check out the Wait, hang on a second. At Brennan T Comedy on all social media. BrennanTComedy.com. There we go.
There we go.
Check out the website. Check out the one-man show, Ex Drinking Buddy, a comics look at life, near-death recovery, and redemption. And we'll talk to y'all next week.
Peace.